So here we have it, folks, a 2020 Citroen C5 Aircross. This is the 1.2 130 horsepower version mated to the E88 gearbox. Now the difference between this and a lot of my car reviews is that I actually bought this car. It's mine. Two reasons for that. First one is I was unable to lease a car because of my current financial situation. Link to video up there telling you more about that. Secondly, Citroen don't ever lend me cars, so this is the only way I get to actually review one. So let me give you a very honest, open, warts and all review of the C5 Aircross. So the first thing to note in here is a nice airy feel. There is plenty of room up front in this cabin. Despite not having a sunroof, it's not too dark in the back. I've also got privacy glass on those rear windows. It does feel like you're in a very large car. Got this big centre console. Nice size cubby there, which is lit, by the way. Two cup holders, just a couple of simple buttons here for eco and sport mode. Both completely useless in my opinion. Don't really do anything, so just leave it in the standard mode. You've got electronic parking brake and your gear selector. That gear selector now very familiar to anyone familiar with PSA Group, Stellantis Group cars. Big cubby down here, but unfortunately no wireless charging pad and only one USB, which I think is absolutely ridiculous in this day and age. The glove box is a bit of a letdown. What the French in their wisdom decided to do is obviously design this car for the left-hand drive world in which they reside. So steering wheel would be over there, fuse box over there. When they made the car right-hand drive, they sort of thought, shall we move the fuse box over here where it would normally be in a UK car? And they said, no. They left it exactly where it is, and it eats into about 50 or 60% of the glove box space. So that's just absolutely daft. Now material quality is a bit of a mixed bag in here. This is all a little bit hard up here. You've got some soft touch leathery kind of effect stuff here. This is all a bit hard and scratchy. And then we've got some nice leathery stuff here, leathery stuff here. It's certainly not a premium level interior, but it doesn't feel like the cheapest thing known to man. The driver information display is a triumph. It's really crystal clear, very bright, very vibrant. The infotainment system is meh at best. The great thing is it's got Apple CarPlay. And for us, we only ever use Apple CarPlay, so that's absolutely fine. You do have to go into the screen to do your aircon and stuff like that, which is an absolute pain in the arse. Luckily, it's climate control, so we very rarely change the settings. You've got a physical knob for the volume, for the radio and everything, and buttons on the steering wheel for that too. The sound quality from the stereo is actually very, very good. And through Apple CarPlay, absolutely brilliant. DAB radio's very good. Now, as there's only one USB socket, don't ever really use the media function for the infotainment system. Just literally plug in the phone and use Apple CarPlay. If it had a separate one, I may actually plug in a USB with all my music on and use that, but ho-hum, such is life. The car's got a reversing camera, which is reasonably good. It does also have a top-down view, but that's sort of a pseudo top-down view. So it builds the image as you're sort of driving backwards and forwards. So it's not brilliant, but it's perfectly fine. Onto the steering wheel, it's quite a nice thing. Nicely trimmed in a bit of leather. We've got thumb controls for the main functions, but it's not overly complex. You do have some flappy paddles, which are largely pointless. It's nice and small and doesn't obscure the driver information display as you might see in some other PSA cars. Now this was the key selling point for us. It's got 3 proper seats. So you can have a kiddie seat in one of them and still get 2 adults in the car at the same time in comfort, meaning you can do a long trip with 5 people in the car, even if one of them's in a car seat. There aren't too many cars that do that properly. Lots of cars have either 2.5 seats or 2.25 seats, or maybe 2 2/3 of a seat, but very few of them have 3 independent rear seats in the back, this being one of just a handful. Now the seats are comfortable enough, but there's really very little to shout about in the back here. We've got privacy glass, we've got seat pockets in the back of the driver and passenger seats, and there's a single USB down there. So you may be thinking to yourself, he's not that fussed on the interior. He would have preferred an extra couple of USBs. he doesn't love the infotainment, why would he buy the car in the first place? Well, the main thing for us was having those 3 independent seats in the back and a nice big boot, which this one's got. I can't remember how many litres it is off the top of my head, so I'm going to pop that up on the screen for you. But also the way the car drives and just the level of comfort. The car's going to be mainly used around town, but we will also do some sort of staycations in it, some longer trips with the family. And I just want something that's easy, something that's comfortable, something that my wife won't complain is going to, you know, make her teeth fall out when she goes over a bump. We spent some time with the Peugeot 3008 over in Spain last year and really enjoyed that car. And obviously it shares a lot of its underpinnings with this one. However, the Citroen has a slightly lighter steering, I would say, which in a lot of situations would be bad, but in a big family SUV that's, you know, a 1.2 130 horsepower thing that we're not going to be taking on any rally stages, having really light steering is actually quite a nice thing. It's very easy to maneuver, it's very comfortable. The suspension in this one differs from the 3008 as well. This has actually got a partial airbag suspension system, and it really just makes the thing super smooth. It glides over anything other than the hardest of bumps, and it's a comfortable, easy, relaxed place to be. Now, what about this powertrain? A 1.2 3-cylinder in a big SUV? You must be bananas, you might be thinking. Well, so did I before I actually drove one. And this engine has got all the power you really need in a car of this kind. It's also mated to this E88 gearbox. Now, the French over the years have been responsible for some of the worst automatic gearboxes known to man. A lot of them being sort of semi-manual, automated manual things that have just been absolutely atrocious, and some of them downright dangerous, to be honest. This is a very traditional affair. It's a torque converter. It's based on the German ZF gearbox, which is largely regarded as sort of the best torque converter automatic gearbox. Torque converters tend to be very reliable, not always the most frugal, but nice and reliable. So it's based on that ZF gearbox, but it's made by Aisin, who make some of the best gearboxes in the world over in Japan. So you've got a German gearbox made in Japan. I like that. As for the engine itself, this 1.2 3-cylinder has been used in so many PSA cars over the years, and now in the wider Stellantis group, and they've really sort of refined it. They've ironed out a few early teething troubles. There's nothing particularly spectacular about the engine, but it does its job really, really well. It's actually a wet belt system, so the cam belt sits in with the oil, which you may think is a bit odd. But what it means is you can quickly inspect the cam belt by just unscrewing the oil cap, which is a nice touch. And the final key point for us was this car only being 2 years old. We've got the final year of the manufacturer's warranty, and then we've got 2 years main dealer warranty, which is almost as good as that manufacturer's warranty. There's also obviously plenty of comeback if anything does go wrong and they try and wriggle out of it, a level of comeback that you wouldn't have with an off-the-shelf warranty policy. MPG's not terrible, not brilliant. I think the official figure's 39.2 combined WLTP. Reality is around town you'll get about 33. On a long run you'll get about 42. I haven't gone too scientific with my measurements, but anecdotally at least that's roughly what we're getting from this car at the moment. This particular one's only done 17,000 miles, it's 2 years old, and I think it will serve us well for a number of years. This is a car that doesn't thrill, it doesn't excite, but it ticks all the practicality boxes I could ever want it to. French cars over the years have had fairly shocking reputation for reliability, but on this C5 Aircross, there don't seem to be too many sort of known or common issues. So I think this one could serve us quite well. So to sum up the C5 Aircross, is it a car I've always dreamed of owning? No. Is it a car that I would own if I didn't have 2 young kids and a dog? No. Is it a car that excites me every time I drive it? No. Is it a car that ticks lots of boxes and hopefully will deliver a decent bit of value for money for us for the coming decade? Yes. And of course, if all that changes, I'll cash in my chips and get something else. Thanks for watching this one, folks. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already done so. There's one thing you can always be guaranteed of on my channel, and that's honesty. See you soon.